So, without further ado, with us today, we have Jen. Jennifer Lennox is a CHRE, Vice President of People Success for North America. Jen has over 20 years of experience leading and working HR in all facets of people success and operations in companies from 25 people to 20,000. She has also worked extensively in the learning and development function with some of Canada's largest corporations. She joined Alchemist in February of 2021 after she spent her last 5+ years in the startup world leading HR and organizational effectiveness for B2B and B2C SaaS and tech organizations. First and foremost, though, Jen is happily married with 2 little boys, 3 stepchildren, and 2 grandchildren. They love to sail and ski as a family, so they spend most of their time on the water or at the ski hills. Secondly, Jen Lennox is the VP of People Success, North America with Alchemist. Jen holds a CHRE designation from HRPA. She is no stranger to human resources, having spent the 20 years of people development, talent acquisition, training and development, executive leadership, and a member of CHRO Council for 5 years. This is why it made perfect sense for her to enter into the startup scale-up world. She joined the startup world as a VP of People in 2017, where she was the first type of leader of this kind to join 3 different executive teams. Before joining Care Guide in 2017, Jen worked for 20+ years for a diverse range of organizations, including small business startups, large corporations, and most recently, the private sector. Jen specializes in talent acquisition, change management, executive people leadership, and development in all areas of HR, and has successfully served a range of clients, including CIBC, Home Depot, and the Humber Group. So that's Jen. And also joining us is Jane Akiki. So Jane is a learning leader with over 20 years of experience. On her path to her passion in learning, she held various positions in banking, including sales and service, operations, change management, and marketing. Jane joined Home Depot Canada in 2008 and is currently the Director of Learning, serving over 30,000 associates across the company or across the country. Jane is very passionate about innovating the way associates learn and transforming the way leaders lead. She is driven by unleashing potential and inspiring achievements to grow versatile talent that enriches the impact on business and customers. So without further ado, we're going to let the ladies jump in. Jen's going to share her screen. And if anyone has any questions, please use the chat function.
Okay, amazing. I hope everybody can hear me, or I'm going to yap for the next bit and hear later. So I am so stoked to be here for so many reasons. It's a true honor for me to be up here with Jane, first and foremost. She's been my mentor for many, many years, so I'm really excited about that. And then I got to meet Kata. There's so many amazing people I've got to meet through my career, but really excited to be here today. So I think I'm going to kick this off with, the kind of the why factor. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that we're here today talking about this because I'm all about simplicity. And let's face it, life in the last little while has been a little crazy. So I want to tell you that I'm here because I was kind of named and referred to as one of those, gritty, resilient, you can handle anything. I've been on my own since I was 16, had no choice, rallied as much as I possibly could. And then the last 2 years happened, and as resilient and gritty as I am, I realized that I really needed to learn some new skill sets. I was going to bring in one of my children today to make it like real life, but unfortunately, or fortunately, they're back at school. So I'll try to make it as real and authentic as I can. I want to keep it casual. I want you to ask questions. We are all in this together. So I'm hoping that at the end of the day, we are doing this for an incredible cause. But even if one of you learns how to kind of take what we've learned to this point and maybe make our lives a little easier, I'll be happy that I was here. So ultimately, we've got a few things we're going to talk about today, but I've got navigating leadership during a pandemic and beyond with EI at the helm. I'm a sailor. I married a sailor. I love the water. And I keep thinking that the last 2 years have been very similar to a really bad storm. And we just have to get through this. So if we put something really simple and tangible and something we can focus on at maybe on the bow of the boat, I'll use another boat analogy, we can make it through anything. So I would like to simplify it and talk a little bit about emotional intelligence today. I'll obviously recognize that everyone's going to read some of these slides as we go, but the big piece about this message is that, being a leader, majority of our role is leadership. And, there's a whole bunch of other pieces to it, but ultimately we need to really take care of our teams, get, collaboration, focus, and productivity through the door. And I think what's happened here is during all of this, as leaders, we've got a lot going on, and we got to put on our happy face as we come into the workplace and make things work, make people engage, make sure we're getting that collaboration and we're getting things done. And really, truly, it's never been more important than now. So again, honing in on really the simple ways to make an impact when we still have the same requirements as us and on us. And I want to make sure that this time is really valuable and impactful for all of you that have joined us today. So I'm going to give you as many tips and tricks. I've done a ton of research, talked to a lot of leaders, and then I think we can also learn from each other. I think that's going to be really important as we go through this. So what I wanted to do is maybe kick things off with a question for all of you. So I can talk as much as I want, but I think it's really cool if we could, as a group, answer one question. So my question for all of you is, what is one word to describe your experience as a leader in the last 2 years? So if you could just take a minute and share a few words. Perfect. Yeah. Impactful, rewarding, fulfilling, hard, real, scary at times. Yes, 100%. Again, it's really truly remembering that, the role of a leader is heavy, but I think, ultimately we're here to guide and support. It's on each person, but we do carry a lot. So it's not like we're just, jumping into work every day as an individual contributor. There's a team of people we're also taking care of. So stick with me here, and we'll go through some more pieces, but I really just wanted to kind of hear from each of you what it's been like. Roller coaster. How well said. Truly, that is just a really good description. So I'm going to keep going. Now, one of the key messages for me today is vulnerability. So you're going to see a lot of that from me. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to just give it to you how it is. Keep things really casual, like I said. So my learnings, my word for the last 2 years would certainly be very similar to the roller coaster, I imagine. And I have this up here. These are my two sons. So Jack is 12 and going on, I think, 8 feet tall. He's huge. And then I've got Ethan, also a big boy, but he's 10. So I have two boys, 10 and 12. You also heard that I'm a grandmother too. So we have a large family and stepkids, and these two little guys have been home with us. So in February of 2020, my son Ethan was assessed with ADD. So I thought, finally, I got the answer. I understand why it's been a true struggle, and we can really make things work. March 2020, he was home. Now, the rest of our world did not pause, did not stop and say, okay, Jen, no problem. You know what? You get to spend all the time you want with him, to develop him, to help him. Listen, there was days that I would be on conference calls, and he has met majority of my teams through the years. But there are days that I'd come downstairs and the kitchen looked like every cupboard had exploded. His face was covered in chocolate and he was experimenting new recipes. And I honestly, I didn't know what to do. I just continued on, but I'll tell you, there were days that I was in tears, and that's the honest to heaven's truth. And those same days, I would have to then, take a breath, get on screen and help my team and show them I'm okay. Take a deep breath, understand that, they don't care necessarily what's going into my house, because very likely they have the exact same thing happening in their house. So that was really important for me, that I realized that there's this big transition, and it's not like the old days where, I drive into the office, shake it all off, get in the office and be fine. It was like I had it around me all the time. The same heaviness, the same struggles, the beautiful joy of seeing my kids every day and helping my team, but still there's a lot of heaviness. So that's what really triggered the whole EQ piece for me, and understanding that there's a whole other piece to get us through this, to really kind of simplify those tough days. So some facts. We all love data, and I think this is really important to recognize. So I'm going to read through these. Most of you have heard them. I mean, especially yesterday, mental health was certainly at top of mind for a lot of people. So 36% of Canadians saying they're struggling with their mental health. CAMH came out with a report yesterday that 1 out of 10 Canadians would consider themselves happy. Again, very open for discussion, but these are just some facts. EI, EQ, emotional intelligence accounts for 58% of performance in all job types. It's the strongest driver of leadership and personal excellence. And then guess what? The next one, we have emotions. It's a joke with my husband and I all the time is, people don't necessarily want to talk about it, but they're there. We are emotional beings, and emotions are tools and they're data if you use them right. So it's interesting. I did a talk at Google a few years ago, and we really went down the whole path of data and managing our teams and being good leaders. And then a lot of people said, but what about the emotions? Can we turn those into data? And when you think about it, absolutely. How people are feeling. We use a tool called Office 5. And, there's a lot of data in there with how people are feeling and how we can support them. So turn it into data. And lastly, 90% of high performers are also high in EQ. So I'm going to take you through this journey now, if you stick with me. And I'm going to simplify exactly what I mean by this. So we are all made up of 3 kind of key ways of being. So we've got our IQ, maybe mostly your intelligence. We've got your personality. So you've got the introverts, the extroverts, the people that process, make decisions differently. We are all very different. And it's not like I wake up in the morning and I say, hey, I want to be an extrovert today. It's truly just who you are. You can certainly, switch through the different dichotomies in life, but ultimately you are who you are. And then you've got your IQ, so the pace where you learn and you can maybe read more books, but some people just have different learning levels. So those 2 are really, truly, in my opinion, all of this is just my opinion, kind of what make you up. And that's who you are. And it is what it is. Then you've got this EQ portion of you, of how you handle the world, how you handle so many different parts. And this one you can make better. This one you can improve. This is one, if you focus on, is most strictly tied to most people's success. If you see people sitting in high up seats, doing well in life, personal and business, you'll usually see aligned with that a high EQ for it to be sustainable. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's really important we understand those 3 components. So what is emotional intelligence? Straight up, it's your ability to talking about emotional intelligence, but I just want to give you the raw basics before we get into the kind of the meat of it to understand what we're talking about. So it's your ability to use that awareness to manage your behavior and relationships. And I'll say it as easy as this. If you've ever had a leader or a peer just lose their mind or, just always expressing in anger, yelling, screaming, slamming doors, so almost oblivious to what's around them, that's somebody who may lack EQ. That's kind of the most basic way to say it, but kind of a good way for it to resonate with all of us. And a visual for the ones that experience this visually. Really, it's nice and easy. So it's really nice and easy to understand when you take a look at it this way, where ultimately you've got your self-awareness, which is your triggers. So imagine driving a car, somebody cuts you off. What happens to your body in that moment? Do you get stressed? Do you get tight? Does your face get heated and go red? Do you get shaky? What is that self-awareness? Being really in tune with that trigger. I'm about to blow my top. I'm about to cry. I'm about to get really upset. What are those triggers? Okay, so that's really important for your self-awareness, is to understand those. And then you've got your self-management, is when I'm about to do this, how in the world am I going to control it? How am I going to manage it? How am I going to make sure that in those moments, I really take a breath? One of the tips I've seen is, somebody in a meeting says something that upsets you, drink a bottle of water, take a sip, count to 10. Then you can't say anything you'll regret. So there's a lot of tips and tricks in regards to your self-management. And then you've got your social awareness. So I give the example of you're out for dinner with your friends. 2 out of 10 of the people sitting at the table are absolutely miserable. Would you notice? And would you talk to them? Would you actually make sure that they're okay? And then it's the whole relationship management. How do you speak to people? How do you fix this? How do you have those conversations? How do you lead people? And then you take all of this that we've been learning for many, many years, not to age myself, And then you throw in a pandemic where now we're doing it virtually. That's what today's about. So most of us couldn't do it perfectly before this, and now we're doing it at a screen. So for example, right now, I'm talking. I don't know if any of you are even paying attention or if you're rolling your eyes or sleeping. I'm just talking, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that everyone's enjoying. So it's just a really good example. Our whole world has been flipped upside down. So we've got all of these skill sets to learn on how to do this, how to, oh, thank you. Thanks, Erin. And how to really respond to different people. And now we're doing it virtually. For some of us, we're going into an office every day still and just kind of hoping that, I used to shake it off at the door and be okay, but I know everybody has so much on their minds. So as a leader, you got a whole bunch more in you. So these key squares are, in my opinion, the best way for us to succeed. Now, I think personally, this is the most important slide I'm going to show you today. So this one, I'll give you a minute just to look at. So this is actually my old team at Care Guide. We went and did a conference. It talk about team bonding. Some of us hadn't met. We all came together. We laughed. And then we just did an all hands kickoff with 150 people 3 weeks ago, and it was virtual. So we don't really have a lot of great stories to tell about, building relationships, but we made it work. So this is the new world we're in. And then I did my research. So I have a group of people here that I went to because I respect them immensely. So these are some HR, some, business development, sales, finance. And I said, just, as leaders, how has this world impacted you? I need to add value to this whole group of people I'm going to be speaking to in a few weeks. And I don't want to waste their time. I could tell you everything that's wrong. Let's face it. Most of you listening to my stories are probably thinking, hey, I have the exact same experience, or maybe worse, maybe less, whatever it is, we're all in this together. But what I did is I went to them because I respect them. And what I respect about them is I know they're all experiencing something outside of the workplace, but how they handle it has been really, really great. Just watching their vulnerability, them telling me about a day that's tough for them, but them still accomplishing and pushing out some really phenomenal projects at work. So I wanted to understand how they do that. So I'm going to put up a few slides. I just want you to read them. I won't read them to you. Just take a minute and read through them and see if they resonate with you. And I'm going to go to the next one. So I think this last one actually got me. In the previous world, we had clear boundaries between work and personal life, and our coworkers had little understanding of our full personality. I'll tell you, nobody knew what was happening at my house. I just moved up to this office upstairs in my house, but I was in my living room for the last 2 years. So again, people would see my kids come home from school. They'd see our new puppy that we got, like most others, running around, tearing mittens apart, and see my husband come home from work. He would even come say hello. So again, a lot of people got to know me in a whole different way, and I got to know a whole bunch of people in a whole different way. So again, they would see if maybe my house was chaotic and wonder about the stress. So there's so many other pieces to what's been seen. But these leaders ultimately, if I may summarize, came back and said, the last 2 years have taught me more than anything. And that is that as a leader, and I think sometimes we forget this, majority of our role is to be a leader. We don't need to be an expert in every single function in the company. We need to stay in our lane, be collaborative, be supportive to our peers, but stay in our lane and take care of our teams. If our teams are not okay, then the company doesn't move forward. And personally, nothing else matters. So again, keeping our teams engaged and thriving, that is on our shoulders. So again, we're going to talk about how to make sure we manage that well for ourselves and then how we pay that forward. And in my opinion, there's nobody better to do that than my mentor, Jane. So I have known Jane for many years. I'm going to bring her on stage. We're going to get to talk to her. We're just going to ask her about 1 or 2 questions. and really truly understand from her perspective. So Jane and I have been teaching leaders for many, many years, and now things have really pivoted in how we train them, what we train them on. So welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to ask you the first one, and again, just whatever your experience has been, anything you want to add at all. So after developing and growing leaders and being a leader yourself for so many years, how would you say things have changed when it comes to leaders managing the culture and onboarding under these new times of stress?
So I'm going to agree with a lot of the comments that you put up on the screen with respect to how challenging it has been and how we've had to change our mindset as leaders. Thinking specifically about how you onboard and orient new associates. If you've got multiple locations or stores like us, the masks and the social distancing have been quite a challenge in making connections with our associates, and for leaders and associates, not having seen each other's full face for 2 years. I mean, wow. I think that as leaders, we have been surviving, and I think that we've been honing in on our basic skills of engaging and connecting and motivating and cheerleading, and how we do that is very different than we did in the past, right? You had your big welcome party, whether you were in a store branch location or you were in a corporate location. There was this big energetic welcome party where it was freely meeting people, drawing from their energy person to person, educating, celebrating the values of the organization, just creating that cultural connection. And now and some of us are dealing with it better than others, and everybody's looking for a recipe, and there is no recipe. What I'll say to you is I break it down into that one big event is now a series of purposeful connections of how we get to know our team members, how we connect to them, whether it's virtually or whether it's 2 feet apart. Right? The ways that we bring about our values and the culture of the organization. For me and for leaders that I have worked with, what has been kind of a winning recipe, or not recipe, but what has been a winning strategy has been to really try to get to know the associate and what matters to them, and then lean in on storytelling and pull stories from your location, from your organization that bring those values to life, that help to make that cultural connection, right? So career development's important to you. Let me tell you about Jessica, who started off as a cashier and now is a district leader, and the opportunities when she just joined the organization thinking it was a part-time job and has made a career out of it. Giving back is a value, something that matters to you. Let me tell you about how we commit to ending youth homelessness and this amazing Habitat Team Depot project that I worked on in order to help to build a kitchen for our homeless youth. Sustainability, let me tell you about our plans in order to reduce product packaging and to be able to contribute and do our share for the environment. Taking care of people and making an impact. Let me tell you about a store manager who has made it his mission to hire new immigrants to Canada and give them an opportunity to have a great beginning here in our great country. Taking care of your family. Let me talk to you about the benefits that we have. And let me share with you a story about somebody who thought they couldn't send their child to post-secondary education, and then through a scholarship opportunity and the support of the organization was able to do that. I mean, think about how those stories make you feel, how they bring the culture about. And so I would say if there's anything that I've learned to hone in on, and I'm asking leaders to lean in on, is storytelling. Use storytelling to connect the culture, the values, and as you can see, it's quite inspiring when you talk about real stories that are happening in your organization and you help your new associates feel that and see themselves in that space.
So good. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was great. So again, for everyone listening, I've watched Jane work with some leaders for a long time. So really pivoting and understanding our new way of thinking is helpful. So thank you, Jane. Stay on. We're just going to do a little quick wrap up.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to summarize. So again, my key is that everyone here leaves with something, if it's even one thing. So I'm going to summarize in just my opinion, what I think are some really helpful tools. So stick with me. And then again, at the end, if there's anything we're missing at all that you can recommend, please, everyone can jump in. So what's next? I pledge to secure my mask first. We've all heard that piece. Please, as leaders, understand that I've heard it many times over, is that, you are the topic at the dinner table as a leader. Like, hey, to my kids, my leader did this today. My leader did this. So if you come in without anything other than that game face on, ready to go, your team's going to feel it. So just be well aware of that. So that's really important to prioritize yourself. And on the EQ front, self-awareness. So tips and tricks in regards to the self-awareness piece is be really aware of those triggers. Get to know what happens to you. Start watching it inside of you. You'll really get to hone in on them soon. How you show up, like I just said, really matters. As leaders, people are looking to us. And it's all right if you're down. It's all right if you're not having a good day, but just acknowledge it and don't fake it. Don't pretend, because every one of those people in that meeting will leave that meeting thinking it's them. So it's really important. And again, the better you are at identifying how you feel, the more empathetic you're going to get, because you understand we're all in this together. And self-management, which we talked about, is, okay, now I know my triggers. How am I going to control it and not lose my mind? Learn the tips and tricks. Okay, so I'm going to recommend a book in just a minute. I want you to maintain a positive outlook. Listen, I said at the beginning that I was that resilient, gritty person, and this 2 years took a toll on me, but I have learned and taught myself the ability to get through those moments, because guess what? Everything's always okay. So get yourself in that mindset and take care of you, whatever it takes to get there. Breathe, very important, and use more emotive languages. It's okay now. In this day and age, you can say, I want, I feel, I hope. It's human, and that is absolutely okay. Social awareness and relationship management. So, having those virtual non-work chats, not every one-on-one needs to be about work. Take a break. Really just ask people how they're doing. Start every conversation like that. In the real world, when we were actually face-to-face, we would do it a lot. Let's make sure we're doing it virtually, because just because we're over the screen doesn't mean I don't want to have a chat with you or laugh a little. Be aware of those virtual cues. It's tough. We're staring at ourselves all the time, and most people have a whole other story going on. So just watch for little changes. I have somebody I work with that reached out yesterday and said, hey, are you okay today? Just wanted to check in. And those are so important. They really matter. So please be that person. To be clear is to be kind, from our friend Brene Brown, who really taught me that, is don't beat around the bush. Tell me what you want when you want it. Say what you mean what you say. That is one of the kindest things you can give to somebody as a leader. And just be real. Listen, you're not going to meet many people more real than me. I will tell you anything, share anything with you, because I was taught that way, Jane, but also because, listen, I think that when we do that, we open up the opportunity for others to have that psychologically safe space, which is really what matters this day and age. And wrap up. So the last piece that I'm going to talk about today, which is final notes. 1, put yourself first and understand your impact. You are leaders. You're the topic at the dinner table. I repeat that over and over again. Personalized recognition. So Jane spoke to it quite a bit, is be specific and talk about it and how each person is represented, instead of, hey, you're all amazing, you're all awesome. Be really clear. The most important for me are the set work boundaries and flexibility. I'm sorry, but this work from anywhere piece has been a true blessing. From 7 to 8:30, my kids are crazy. They're running around the house. We want to get them out. Give me that space and I will give you my all. Then maybe I'll, take a break, watch some Desperate Housewives, do something, but let me be flexible. Let our teams be flexible. You be flexible. Figure out your fun and go do it, because our teams need us to be okay, or not be, and be honest about it. And then share your own vulnerabilities. I hope you take a little bit from me today that I've been showing my vulnerability for a long time and nobody's judged. Well, maybe somebody's judged me, but overall I landed on my feet and I've had more people be honest with me right back. So show your vulnerability. It doesn't mean you're weak. It actually means you're stronger. So continue to do that. And if you're interested in the whole topic of EQ, please get the book to EI, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It has changed my world. It's a little assessment that you do to see where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, gives you tips and tricks. It's a true workbook. Maybe share it with your teams to help get through this, because I think it's truly what's going to help us be successful. And that's it. I just wanted to put a note here to say, make sure you capture some takeaways that you want to do. Thank you, everyone, so much for taking the time out. And Kata, that's a wrap.
Awesome. And we're back. So we do have a few more minutes, about 5 minutes, for any questions. So if anyone here has any questions, if you want to raise your hand to come on stage and talk with the ladies, you're welcome to. If you want to just type something into chat, any extra advice from what you're taking, I think from everything Jen talked about today, and Jane as well, it is such a tricky time to be a manager. And I think for me, one of the things I think about is, well, okay, like how do you actively be that people manager where you care so much about your team and then make that space for yourself, right? And like, it's struggling with putting yourself first, but wanting to constantly put your team first. I think if there's any extra tips you ladies have on that too that we can share with everyone, I think that would be incredibly useful before we send everyone off in the next 5 minutes.
Janie, so Kata, what is the core of what you're looking for there? Just kind of
like any extra tips you have for people if they find themselves struggling with wanting or knowing how to put them first when they think they constantly need to put their people first, right? And making that tough decision. If you had any other words of advice for people to take away for that.
About it to two of my best friends, and it was so helpful. And I don't do that often, but I realized how important that was, and a colleague. So I suggest just talking to people about it, and it's okay. Acknowledge it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think everything that Jen said about being in tune with your emotions and being vulnerable about it. I believe that I gained even more trust with my team when I was saying to them, hey, I'm not okay. Right. And when they were asking, like, when is this going to be over? What's going to happen? Are we going to require vaccinations? When are we going to come back to work? And I'm saying, I'm with you. I don't know. And yes, this causes some anxiety with me. So how do we come together? Right. And build kind of a platform for ourselves and platform of strength, right? What are the answers that we're looking for? And how do we manifest those from a positive perspective? Right. So yeah, it's really tough for me because I am such a social being, and being in this like confined space and working out of my office and depending so much on the screen has been quite a challenge. But I find more connections, talking to more people, ensuring that I'm being intentional about connecting with those that I would have, met down the hall that I don't now, to just kind of keep that going. And when we share, and I realize I'm not alone in this, right? We sail together, Jen.
That was good.
I love that. I think it's also something like a trend I've noticed is during the beginning of the pandemic, we're all just like, yeah, how are you doing? I'm fine. I like working from home. It's good. And then now I think, and I'm sure you guys have had similar experiences, you have more conversations with people and it's like, how are you doing? And some people are like, not that great. Like, I'm kind of tired of being stuck inside. It's like, it's cold, it's dark. And I think this goes to the points on being vulnerable, right? And now thinking like, okay, it's not just me that's struggling with this, right? And opening up that space for communication where now people are like, oh, it is okay to say that, like, yeah, this isn't so great. And I'm kind of tired of working from home. And I think it's like, again, it's the most effective tool for leadership. And I think both of you did such an incredible job on touching on that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kata.
Thank you.